They taught you to worship numbers before they taught you to understand the market. They handed you a neat little rule, risk one to make three, and told you that if you followed it faithfully, profits would eventually bow before you. It sounded scientific. It sounded disciplined. It sounded safe. And that is precisely why it has ruined so many otherwise capable traders. I know, because I once believed in clean arithmetic too. You are sitting there now, staring at your charts, telling yourself that your method is sound. Your entries are precise. Your stops are tight. Your targets are ambitious. Yet somehow, week after week, your account bleeds slowly, methodically, like a man who insists on walking into the same knife because the odds say he should survive. Let me speak plainly, because the market has no patience for polite illusions. The market does not reward ratios. It rewards judgment. And judgment is forged only through pain, observation, and the willingness to abandon what looks correct on paper. I have lost fortunes not because I lacked intelligence, but because I trusted rules that ignored human nature, my own and the market's. I chased perfection in structure while ignoring the simple truth that price does not move to satisfy your spreadsheet. When you insist on a 1 to 3 risk-reward, you are not trading the market in front of you. You are negotiating with a fantasy. You are asking price to travel 3 times farther than it naturally wishes to go, while promising yourself that patience alone will make it comply. That is not discipline. That is stubbornness dressed up as professionalism. Most retail traders misunderstand risk-reward because they misunderstand where risk truly lives. Risk does not live in the distance between your entry and your stop. It lives in the probability of follow-through. It lives in whether the market agrees with you, not whether your math looks elegant. I have said before, and you may remember this if you watched my video on the 5 trading rules that still work, that the market is never wrong. Opinions often are. A fixed 1 to 3 ratio is nothing more than an opinion imposed on price. You tell yourself, if I'm right only 30% of the time, I'll still win. That logic seduces beginners because it removes responsibility. It whispers that accuracy does not matter, that understanding does not matter, that you can afford to be careless as long as your winners are large. But let me ask you something uncomfortable. If you truly understood the market, why would you accept being wrong 70% of the time? That tolerance for failure seeps into everything. You become numb to bad entries. You justify poor timing. You sit through drawdowns that erode not just your capital, but your confidence. And eventually, when the one trade finally runs to your glorious 1 to 3 target, you exit early because your mind has been trained to fear profit more than loss. I have watched this tragedy repeat itself across decades. The cruel irony is this: the traders who chase large reward multiples are often the least capable of holding them. They have not earned the psychological stamina. They have not endured enough winning trades to believe in them. In my other video on patience under pressure, I spoke about waiting not for hope, but for confirmation. That lesson matters here more than anywhere else. A trader who waits for a perfect 1 to 3 setup often waits while the market already moves. He enters late, places his stop where it must be hit, and then wonders why the market seems to hunt him personally. It is not hunting you. It is revealing you. Markets are engineered by human behavior to test the largest cluster of obvious decisions. Tight stops paired with distant targets are the most obvious structure of all. They create the illusion of safety while guaranteeing frequent emotional injury. Every stopped-out trade leaves a mark. You tell yourself it is small. You tell yourself it is acceptable. But the mind does not measure loss in percentages, it measures it in repetition. After enough small losses, hesitation replaces clarity. You begin to second-guess entries that once felt obvious. You delay execution. You miss the very trades that would have paid you. This is how accounts die quietly. Now consider the trader who accepts a 1 to 1 or 1 to 2 risk-reward, not out of laziness, but out of respect for reality. He demands alignment. He demands structure. He enters when the market is already leaning in his direction, not when it might someday feel generous. His win rate rises, not because he is smarter, but because he is selective. He is not begging price to travel far. He is cooperating with what is already unfolding. And here is the secret that no one tells you. Consistency is born from reinforcement, not heroics. A trader who wins more often begins to trust himself. That trust sharpens execution. Sharp execution improves timing. Better timing reduces stress. Reduced stress allows. A trader who wins more often begins to trust himself. That trust sharpens execution. Sharp execution improves timing. Better timing reduces stress. Reduced stress allows patience. And patience, real patience, not forced waiting, is what produces the occasional outsized win when the market truly offers it. That is how professionals grow accounts. Quietly, methodically, without advertising their ratios. When I scaled capital, something I revealed in my video titled "The Secret to Scaling Trading Capital" revealed, it was never because I demanded more from the market. It was because I demanded more from myself. I learned to take what the market was willing to give repeatedly, rather than insisting on rare windfalls. The retail trader clings to 1 to 3 because it feels like escape. Escape from small accounts. Escape from slow growth. Escape from the uncomfortable truth that trading rewards restraint before ambition. But markets do not fund escape plans. They fund competence. You do not need bigger targets. You need cleaner entries. You do not need mathematical salvation. You need emotional stability. And stability comes from aligning your expectations with how markets actually breathe. Short expansions, frequent retracements, and occasional runs that cannot be forced. I have survived bubbles, crashes, public humiliation, and private ruin. Every lesson I kept was paid for dearly. And if you listen carefully, the market is offering you that wisdom now without charging you the same price. You are not failing because you lack courage. You are failing because you are chasing a fantasy ratio instead of mastering the craft beneath it. Hold that thought. Once you accept that the market owes you nothing beyond what it is willing to give, something subtle begins to change inside you. The noise softens. The urgency fades. You stop trying to extract profit and start learning how to receive it. That shift, quiet, almost invisible, is where real traders are born. Most never reach it. They spend their days calculating how much they could make if everything goes right, instead of asking how often things actually do go right. The fixation on 1 to 3 risk-reward is not a strategy flaw. It is a character flaw disguised as ambition. It reveals impatience. It reveals insecurity. It reveals a deep discomfort with incremental progress. I recognize it because I carried it myself. Early in my career, I believed large wins would redeem all mistakes. I believed that if I could just catch the big swing, the market would forgive my recklessness. But the market is not a priest. It does not absolve. It only records. Every time you take a trade with a distant target and a fragile stop, you are making a silent confession. I hope. Hope is not a position. It is a vulnerability. Watch how most retail traders manage a 1 to 3 setup. They enter late because confirmation comforts them. They place stops where logic suggests, not where price respects. Then they sit, staring at every tick, because the distance to their target demands endurance they have not trained. The first pullback feels like a threat. The second feels personal. By the third, fear is fully awake. And when price finally reaches a modest profit nowhere near the grand target they promised themselves, they take it. Relief replaces discipline. The math collapses. The strategy fails not because the ratio was wrong, but because the trader was never capable of executing it. This is not a moral judgment. It is an observation forged through repetition. If you survive this stage, you'll never trade the same again. I spoke about the phase where traders confuse endurance with strength. They believe sitting through discomfort proves commitment. In truth, unnecessary discomfort only weakens decision-making. Strength comes from positioning yourself where discomfort is minimal because probability is on your side. That is what a balanced risk-reward offers. A 1-to-1 trade demands respect for timing. It demands precision. You cannot afford laziness. You cannot hide behind distant targets. Either the market agrees with you quickly, or you are wrong, and you exit without argument. This creates something rare: feedback. Fast feedback sharpens skill. Slow feedback breeds delusion. When losses are small and frequent enough to be informative but not emotionally crushing, you begin to learn. You notice which entries work. You notice which conditions favor continuation. You notice how volatility expands and contracts. Your mind becomes attuned to rhythm rather than fantasy. Compare this to the trader chasing 1 to 3. His feedback arrives distorted. Many small losses blur together. The occasional larger win arrives unpredictably, reinforcing hope rather than understanding. He cannot tell whether success came from skill or luck. And when luck fades, as it always does, he is left with nothing solid to stand on. Professionals cannot afford that ambiguity. When I speak of patience, I do not mean waiting endlessly for a price to reach some distant objective. I mean the patience to repeat high-quality decisions thousands of times. That form of patience is active. It requires discipline, not endurance. If you can remember, in the video where I talked about the 5 decisions that took me from stuck to consistently profitable, one decision mattered above all others. I stopped measuring success by how much I could make on one trade, and started measuring it by how reliably I could extract profit from favorable conditions. That change alone reshaped my entire relationship with risk. Let me tell you something the charts will never show you. Winning more often, even with smaller gains, rewires your nervous system. Your breathing steadies. Your hands stop hesitating. Your execution becomes decisive. And decisive execution is what allows you to occasionally press size when the market truly aligns. That is how large profits are built, not by demanding them in advance, but by earning the right to hold them when they appear. The irony is cruel but precise. Traders obsessed with big rewards are rarely present when big rewards arrive. They are exhausted from defending poor positions. They are emotionally compromised. They are trying to recover rather than capitalize. Markets sense weakness because it is expressed through behavior. Late entries, tight stops, early exits, overtrading, revenge trades. These are not random mistakes. They are symptoms of a strategy that asks more of the trader than he can sustainably give. A realistic risk-reward ratio respects the trader's limitations. It works with human psychology instead of against it. And any approach that aligns with human nature will outperform one that requires constant suppression of fear. I learned this after losing and rebuilding fortunes. After discovering that intelligence alone does not produce consistency, only structure does. And structure begins with accepting how markets actually move, not how we wish they would. Price expands, pauses, retraces, and tests conviction. It does not sprint endlessly toward your target just because your spreadsheet demands it. A trader aligned with this reality takes profits when probability peaks, not when ego insists. See, the truth is that growth accelerates when survival is no longer in question. Survival depends on repeatability. Repeatability depends on emotional stability. And emotional stability is incompatible with constant hope-based trading. This is why so many accounts hover just above ruin, not because traders are foolish, but because they are chasing an illusion sold as discipline. The illusion whispers, if you just hold longer, if you just believe harder, if you just accept more pain, the market will reward you. It will not. The market rewards alignment, not sacrifice. And once you truly understand that, you stop arguing with price. You stop forcing trades to meet ratios. You begin listening. And when you listen long enough, the market tells you exactly how much it is willing to give today, not in some imagined future. That understanding changes everything. Stay with me. There comes a moment in every trader's life when the market stops feeling like an adversary and starts feeling like a mirror. It reflects back not your strategy, not your indicators, not your ratios, but you, your patience, your fear, your honesty, your readiness. Most never reach that moment because they are too busy bargaining. They bargain with distance. They bargain with time. They bargain with ratios. The 1 to 3 risk-reward is one of the most common bargaining chips. It allows a trader to feel virtuous while avoiding accountability. Losses become part of the plan. Poor entries become normal variance. And responsibility dissolves into statistics. But the market keeps records more accurately than any journal. It remembers where you hesitated. It remembers where you hoped. It remembers where you refused to accept being wrong. And it will test those weaknesses again and again until they are either corrected or they bankrupt you. I learned, painfully, that survival in this business is not about how much you can make when you are right, but how little damage you take when you are wrong. That lesson alone would have spared me years of ruin. It is the lesson most traders hear, nod at, and then promptly ignore, because it does not sound heroic. There is nothing heroic about taking what the market offers and stepping aside. There is nothing glamorous about small, consistent gains. There is no storybook drama in exiting quickly when the market disagrees with you. Yet this unremarkable behavior is what builds fortunes. When you stop chasing 1 to 3, something liberating happens. You stop needing the market to prove you right. You stop defending positions that should have been abandoned. You stop mistaking suffering for commitment. You begin to trade with clarity. Clarity is not excitement. It is calm. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are aligned with probability, not fighting it. And clarity allows you to do something most retail traders never manage: stay in the game long enough to matter. Think back to what I said in the video about the trader's breakthrough phase. I made mention that breakthroughs do not arrive through dramatic insight. They arrive through the removal of self-sabotage. They arrive when you stop insisting on outcomes and start refining decisions. The illusion of 1 to 3 risk-reward is seductive because it promises transformation without maturity. It promises growth without restraint. It promises success without repetition. But markets do not operate on promises, they operate on behavior. A trader who consistently takes reasonable profits builds a track record of trust with himself. That trust compounds faster than capital. It sharpens instincts. It strengthens resolve. And when the rare moment comes when the market truly trends, when momentum aligns, when participation expands, that trader does not panic. He holds. Not because a ratio told him to, but because experience did. That is the difference between demanding large rewards and earning them. I have often said that the big money is made by sitting, not trading. What most people miss is that sitting requires confidence, and confidence is impossible without a foundation of consistent execution. You cannot sit on a trade if every prior trade has trained you to fear disappointment. The trader enslaved to 1 to 3 never learns to sit. He learns to endure. Endurance exhausts. Sitting empowers. And here is the final truth, one I want you to carry with you long after this video ends. The market is not a slot machine designed to pay out based on odds. It is a living auction driven by human behavior. Your job is not to extract maximum value from every move, but to participate only when conditions favor you. When you release the illusion of fixed rewards, you reclaim flexibility. You adapt. You respond. You scale when it is earned, and retreat when it is not. You trade what is there, not what you wish would appear. This is how professionals think, not in terms of ratios, but in terms of alignment, context, and timing. Every enduring lesson points back to the same principle. Simplicity survives. Ego does not. So I leave you with this. Stop asking how much you can make. Start asking how often you are right. Stop worshiping distant targets. Start respecting present conditions. The market will never reward desperation, but it will quietly reward discipline day after day, trade after trade, until one day you look back and realize you are no longer chasing success. You are operating from it. And that is when the market finally stops teaching you lessons and starts paying you for what you have learned. If this spoke to you, do not let it pass as entertainment. Study it, test it, apply it with discipline. The market rewards those who think independently and act deliberately. Subscribe to this channel if you are serious about trading as a profession, not a pastime. Share this with a trader who is still chasing illusions. And return not for signals, but for understanding. Because in this business, survival comes first, and everything else follows.